What's going on, guys? We are looking at a nice recovery day. It was definitely overdue. We have Bitcoin up right around 5% as of this upload. A lot of the miners going crazy today. CleanSpark up right around 10%, Sphere 3D up about 20%. And I got some articles I want to show you, and we're also going to go over a few charts, so let's get started. Now, if you like these videos, you know what to do, but let's get started right up here. And let's take a look at this. Many retail investors see Bitcoin's price dropping below 20,000 by the end of the year. But don't fall for this. More of those surveyed for this $20,000 price target said they expect Bitcoin to disappear than those who said they expect it to continue to exist. This is a clearly skewed, biased group of people here. But over 1/3 of respondents said that Bitcoin's price will drop below 20,000 by year end, and more people expect the crypto to disappear rather than stay. 42% anticipate its disappearance, while 39% expect Bitcoin to continue to exist. But the bank that did this survey does note that this poor sentiment is likely due to past events such as the demise of FTX and the collapse of Terra, sorry for my voice. The ongoing regulatory crackdown in the US is also seen as an overhang. And the bank's survey also highlighted a lack of understanding of cryptocurrencies, with 2/3 of consumers having little to no understanding of digital assets. So why are they even going through the trouble of telling us this, telling us that of these half of the people that think Bitcoin isn't going to exist, they see a $20,000 price target? I'm sure they also see a $0 price target one day. You can't pay attention to these kinds of articles. It's a headline alone. If you look at the headline and see 20,000 and people say, oh, you know what, everyone expects 20,000, I'm just gonna wait. No, this is not what you do. You buy the fear. When things start dipping, when you're down 30% from Bitcoin's top, and when people are saying, oh yeah, we're heading back down to the all-time low, we're heading back down to the 52-week low, we're heading down to 20,000, we're heading down to 25, 30,000, you start adding in the beginning of that fear, or you're going to miss it, just like this. And let's face it, does anyone really know where Bitcoin's going? No. And I'll be the first to say, while this is great that we're seeing a recovery day, we can definitely in short time get back to our recent lows. But even if in the following next couple weeks or something, we do get back to our recent lows, it's still the same story. You buy low and you either sell high or you continue slowly DCAing if you're that long-term minded, which not many people are. Not many people are looking at Bitcoin over the next decade. And I know I'm getting a little off topic here, but think about this, last cycle top, I'm sure there's people that bought 60,000, 65, almost $70,000 Bitcoin. And if those people didn't DCA through all this pain down under 20,000, they would still be at that 60-something thousand dollar price point of buying. And that's why you DCA during the bear market. You continue buying and getting your cost basis down. But the reality is that even if you bought at $60,000, $65,000, $69,000 Bitcoin, by the end of this cycle, we will be much higher in price. And even if you buy this cycle's top, all you have to do is either buy during the next bear market or continue to wait until the next halving and the bull market that comes. Bitcoin overall will continue going up and to the right. It will end up always creating new all-time highs over time. And regardless of if Bitcoin's at 60,000, at 20,000, at 15,000, at 30,000, at 100,000, this is still the best asset that money can buy. So I know most of you would see that article with a $20,000 price target and say that's total BS. But for those of you that don't see it that way, just remember these articles with these crazy low price targets that are made by people who think Bitcoin isn't going to exist soon. In reality, those articles are good for nothing more than a laugh. And we also have something else going on here recently. The government plans to sell $118 million worth of Bitcoin. However, this is peanuts compared to GBTC selling. And I quote, "We have been eating GBTC sales 4 times this amount for breakfast." And that's something to think about. With all this selling pressure, with Bitcoin miners selling, with GBTC selling, with FTX selling, with the Mt. Gox coming along too, with now the government potentially selling. All this and Bitcoin still near or above $40,000. That shows you that there's still a lot of buying pressure even with all this selling going on. Yes, we're down from our 49,000 peak, but I believe it won't be long until we get back there and above. And that's why you buy when people are panicking. That's why you buy when people are a little bit worried that we're heading much lower. You of course keep some cash to the side, and that's easier said than done, of course. There's definitely a balance to it. But when there's blood in the streets out there, this is the best time to really be looking at Bitcoin seriously, really be trying to add, not trying to add when we're so greedy and when everyone thinks we're going much, much, much higher. That's usually the time you want to let off the gas a little bit and be cautious. And we also have something else very, very interesting, and I posted this yesterday showing you the different all-in costs for the miners. And we have some words from Cantor Fitzgerald, which is the creator of that chart. And here's Matt Schultz, one of the execs of CleanSpark, showing off this chart. But check this out. The only miners Cantor Fitzgerald expects to maintain profitability following the halving. assuming an average price of $40,000 per Bitcoin and no drastic changes in hash rate, was BitDeer, and I want to look more into them, but they're Singapore based, and also none other than CleanSpark. Now Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners are seeing a nice recovery day here, which is fantastic, definitely overdue. Now I think we're at an important point for Bitcoin. We're either going to break this trend line, which we have definitely respected. We have used this as a support. It was a previous resistance. It became a resistance again once we broke it, and now we're coming right back up to it. We'll see if we can break over it, which would be fantastic, or we'll see if we find it as resistance once more and potentially head back to that 40,000 psychological level. And we have CleanSpark showing a beautiful recovery day today. And I don't know if I've said this before, but pretty much all of 2023, you'll see that CleanSpark has only touched oversold on the RSI like 3 times. Anytime CleanSpark gets near oversold, it is time to buy. The market rarely lets this get too oversold. It literally bounces off of oversold, and this is basically another instance of that. One thing I don't want to see here is this gap. We're seeing a gap here. We just filled our gap recently in the high 7s, and we have another one now. I would love next week to see us fill this and then go on to push higher, but we'll see what happens there. I'm not entirely convinced that it's time to recover yet, but it's really up to Bitcoin to decide. Of course, if Bitcoin starts heading towards 49,000, yeah, obviously these miners are very likely to head higher. If Bitcoin comes back down to test its 40,000 level, hopefully we can see stocks like CleanSpark fill their gaps before moving on to the next leg up. I also want to talk about Any or Sphere 3D. We're seeing a beautiful 20% up day. Like I said, guys, days like these are bound to happen. When we get on that really bullish momentum, we're going to see these crazy days like this, these 20% up days, 30% up days, even 50% up days, at least while the market cap's so small here. Now, I'm a bit concerned on this one. It looks like we're finding resistance on this. We're probably going to continue down if we can't break out of this resistance line. But I would argue currently, at least for Sphere 3D, we are in a downtrend still. But it looks like we established a pretty strong support here, right in the 150 area. And anytime this dips is a great opportunity to continue to add. I'm trying to build up my shares so in the future I can sell covered calls on Sphere 3D. I think these miners, when things get really hot, when things get really overbought on this RSI, just like back here, you know, when we go on these crazy runs and it just keeps going, and you say, okay, it's getting a little too hot here. It's time to start cooling down. We're getting overbought on the RSI. What do? Do you sell your shares? You certainly could. But another thing you could do is sell covered calls. Whereas you would collect premium either way, and you have the opportunity to sell some shares at a higher price than you would right now. And by right now, I mean in the next huge run. And if those shares don't get called away, you collect that premium regardless, keep your shares to do the next covered call. But I love hearing when you guys are taking advantage of covered calls on these kinds of runs. And I'd argue that it definitely is better than just outright selling shares. But there's definitely a time and place for everything. Next up, I want to mention BitDigital, BTBT. I really like this as an Ethereum play. They do stake Ethereum while also mining Bitcoin. We're seeing roughly a 9-10% up day here, finding resistance on the 200 MA, this green line. Now what I want to see for BTBT is us to not fall down more. We're going to see these moving averages start curling downwards, which I definitely don't want to see, but things are looking okay right now. The moving averages are pointing up, and I want to see us break over this 200 MA, and then next break over the 50, but these are going to probably be important to watch. The market will react around these levels. But BTBT has been one I've been slowly adding here. And I do think it's still a great time to be adding to the miners, maybe not on a 20% up day, 10% up day, but you know, you got to take advantage of these dips. And while you're in the middle of them, you feel like you're never going to get out. You feel like it's just going to keep falling, but then the day comes where suddenly you see a huge rally and maybe it continues from there. But thanks for watching, guys. How are you feeling today? It's nice to look like we're closing the end of the week on a good note. The reality is the prices of Bitcoin and these miners can only be suppressed for so long. In the end, Bitcoin's incoming supply will be cut in half in under 3 months. BlackRock is going to continue buying. Retail is going to FOMO in once we break to new highs again. And eventually the selling pressure will go away. The Bitcoin miners will feel like they have a sufficient cash pile soon. And the buying pressure inevitably will take over the selling pressure. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you're doing today. And I hope you guys have a good weekend.